Good morning. Today I want to talk about how we manage our stress. I want to use an analogy that I've used and I've shared quite a few times on different training courses I've done, and I find it quite useful. Um, as Imagine that you have a bucket that you carry around with you, in maybe say in your chest, or so you carry around this bucket that carries all your stress, all the stresses that you get during your day, or at work, at home, and you put them in your bucket. Now, uh, we all need a certain amount of stress. Um, some people have called it eustress. Uh, I remember Yerkes Dodson um, uh, came up with a curve that told you if you had I haven't really got anything to draw it out on, but you imagine you have this curve of optimum stress. So when you get to the top of that curve is when you're at your highest level of performance. So you've just got enough stress just to get yourself going, um, to get you up out of bed, to get you to do stuff. So that level of anxiety that you need to finish something off, yeah. Um, so if you may be a student at the moment, or you may be doing some. So I'm doing an assignment at the moment, and the deadline is just creeping nearer. So my level of anxiety about getting that completed is beginning to rise, which is coinciding with my peak performance to write that assignment. At the beginning, when I was handed that assignment, the anxiety was quite low because the deadline was quite a way off, so my performance level was quite low. I wasn't actually doing it. Now, as it gets closer and closer, I'm getting to that peak performance. Now, if I leave it, if I just fester on that level of anxiety, I'll go past my level of peak performance, and I'll start to get really stressed about it. And as I start to get really stressed, my performance drops off. And can you imagine, it's 2 o'clock in the morning of the morning that you are due to hand in that assignment, whether that's to press download, upload to turn it in, or whatever, and you haven't quite finished, and you're down to the references. You can get to that point where the stress is so much that you stop functioning, and don't complete it. That's the that's what we're talking about with stress. We have good eustress, good stress, and we have de-stress that is causes us the problems where we don't actually function. So we know we need a certain optimum level of stress, and that's what our bucket can hold. That's the size of our bucket. When we get to that point, the 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to write your references in time for uploading it to turn it in at 7 in the morning or whatever, that's the point where the bucket starts to overflow. The stress starts to get too much. Yeah. So they're moments in time, aren't they? Those kind of anxiety about exams, or about getting assignments completed. But we have all those stresses all the time, don't we? Just these minor stresses, that micro stresses that happen during our day, that add into our bucket. They're just adding into our bucket all the time. It's carrying this bucket of stress around, and it's okay. It's 2/3 full, but it's okay because that's where I'm working at, and I'm cooking on gas at the moment. So I'm being my most productive, being most productive, being most productive. Carrying on, not paying attention to anything, just carrying on doing our stuff, adding more stress to that bucket. Not looking at my bucket because I'm busy doing what I need to do. This is happening a lot at the moment. I work in the health service, and you're seeing colleagues doing this. Um, they're working at that high level. They've maybe missed some holidays recently because of what's happening with COVID, and so they're working at that high level all the time, constant, constant, constant. And we're okay. I'm okay. I'm doing what I need to do. I'm doing the job I'm trained to do. That bucket's getting fuller and fuller and fuller. If they don't look down and see that their bucket's full, before they know it, that bucket overflows. And when that bucket overflows, they can't function anymore. And you might recognise that in yourself. You get to that point, you're working. I can't work anymore. I'm so stressed out. I don't know what to do next. I don't know where to go, what to do. And you stop. And it's awful. And you've got to take, sometimes it ends up with people being off sick. Sometimes that'll manifest itself as a psychological response to that, that you become so distressed that you just can't go to work. Other people, that manifest itself as a physical manifestation. So they might become ill, sick, start being sick. They might get backache, some back pain. They might get headaches, neck pain. All of those things that are associated with stress. Abdominal pain is another one that can suddenly manifest itself because of this bucket being full, the bucket of stress being completely full. So how do we make sure that our bucket doesn't overflow? How can some people, where you see them at work and you see them doing it, and they're just sort of going through the motions and they're being really effective, but they don't ever seem to get to that point of de-stress. They manage their level of stress, they're managing their bucket. And it's really simple. It just takes a few moments every day just to take stock of your day and what was good about your day and what was helpful about your day. Those moments where we can maybe put a tap at the bottom of our bucket. So we've got our bucket of stress. Imagine there's a bucket of stress there. We put a tap on the bottom of it and we can just turn that tap just ever so slightly just to let some of that stress out so we can keep on that even keel. We do that by paying attention to ourselves, by allocating ourselves some time for happiness that's for us and just for us. Now I heard somebody call it an hour of happiness. When you're a busy person, when you're doing all of the stuff that we're doing and we're trying to keep our lives together, an hour, I think that's a long time. I ain't got time for an hour. But think about that. Think about that over your whole day. What are you doing that derives pleasure for you? There might be some aspects of your job that you do that are pleasurable, enjoyable. I used to be a children's nurse, and when I was manager of the ward, when I could feel the stress getting up, I was talking about it today with a friend, when I could feel my stress levels getting up, occasionally I'd go and find a baby on the ward that needed feeding, so they needed a bottle feed. I said to the parents, if the parents weren't around or the nurse was looking after them, I'll do that feed for you. You can crack on and do whatever you need to do. Doing that lovely, spending that 5 minutes just de-stressing, just bottle feeding a baby. There's nothing better than giving a baby a cuddle and feeding them, isn't there? All those of you that are parents out there, it's just lovely, that little noises that they make. So that was my de-stress at work. That was my moment of happiness. It was 5-10 minutes feeding that baby. I added to my hour, the hour of happiness throughout my day. I travel to work on the bus when I go into work. At the moment, this is my office a lot of the time, but I travel on the bus, put my headphones in, listen to some music, just drift away, have that moment of happiness, that 10-20 minutes on the bus, a moment of happiness listening to some music. I'll take the dog for a walk. That can be anywhere between, depending on how slow she's being that day, anywhere between 20 minutes and an hour out. So that's my inventory of happiness that day. Just taking the dog for a walk, listening to some music, putting a box set on when you get home on Amazon or Netflix, or whatever. A particular series you might be interested in watching. An hour of happiness. Getting your favourite book out, giving it a read. reading a chapter a day, just taking yourself away to another world. You might play an instrument, you might exercise, go for a run, go for a swim. When my children were little, like I said, when I was a charge nurse, I'd love feeding the babies. When my children were little, spending time with the children, when they were really little, bathing them, getting them ready for bed, reading them a story, feeding them, all those lovely moments. Those moments you don't get back. Putting them in your hour of happiness. When we get home and I cook tea, I like to enjoy cooking tea. So I enjoy that moment of putting the meal together. So there's another aspect of happiness that I can have. All of this stuff is opening up that tap at the bottom of your bucket. And this is the wonderful thing about managing your stress levels, is you don't have to do anything incredibly hard or incredibly innovative. All you need to do is just spend a moment, appreciate what has happened that day that's been good, that you've enjoyed, that's given you some positive emotion through the day. I have a friend and colleague every day she puts on Facebook her three positives for the day, 3 things that have happened to her that day that have been positive, that have made her smile. It's wonderful. She's always got that tap open on her bucket because she's consciously looking for what has made her happy that day. Now, we can do it occasionally. The trick is to do it all the time. So when we're caught up in our lives, in the work that we're doing, and at the moment everything seems to be closing in on us a little bit, doesn't it? Even though we've got some newfound freedoms, there's always that spectre of what's going to come next. So we're working, not really paying attention to ourselves. So we need to make that conscious effort. Make that conscious effort to pay attention to our well-being by giving us, by creating an inventory of our happiness throughout the day. Just logging that off as you go to bed, appreciating it. During the day, pausing and appreciating those moments that are good, that make you smile inside, that engage you. It's really, really important that we maintain our bucket of stress and pay attention to our world so we can keep that tap just slightly open so we don't overflow, become overly stressed. Stay safe, everybody. Thank you.